Hello, and welcome to Little Bits. This is the show that gives you a little bit of art, a little bit of craft, and a little bit of history. And on today's show, we're going to talk about one of the most popular faux finishes out there, faux marbling. Welcome back to Little Bits. So on today's show, we're talking about how to create a faux marble finish, a Carrara marble finish. These products are all readily available at arts and crafts stores, and with the paint and the glaze, I'd estimate if you didn't have any of this in your home or ready to start, would cost about $50 to do the entire project, to do an entire wall, which obviously is a lot less expensive than marble, which can run $70 or $80 a foot. The first step that you're going to do is you have your handy dandy paper plates. You're just going to pour out some of the white primer paint. I just covered the plate. You don't need a lot of paint to cover what I'm working on. This is going to vary depending on what project you're doing. I would recommend starting on something small, an end table, a column. So just make sure that you get a nice white surface for you to start your marbling. You know, faux finishing has been around for thousands of years. They actually found faux painting in the cave paintings thousands of years ago. It was widely used in Pompeii, but took off during the European Renaissance. There were two schools, the Italian school, which was loose and artistic, and the French school, which was very formal and realistic, and took up to 10 years for an apprentice to learn the art of marbling. In Europe, in the historic buildings that faux marbling is used, you really cannot distinguish between the real and the faux marble. The techniques were perfected by the 17th century and used well into the 20th. Reached its peak in Britain in 1845 with some recognized masters. Faux finishing, in particular faux marbling, is still used. Eastern European restoration since 1990 has made great use of faux finishing, and it was very popular during the neoclassical 19th century revival and the Art Deco period of the 1920s. And in America in the 80s and 90s, faux finishes began replacing wallpaper. So we saw a lot of faux marbling, some faux wood graining, some faux brick, a lot of artistic representations of materials that were difficult to put on walls. And the faux marble Carrara, again, is one of the most popular and I think one of the easiest faux finishes to master. Okay, so it's very important with this marble that you start with a nice, smooth, white base. And then you're gonna start applying bits of color. That's gonna make it look like real marble. And when you come back, I'll show you how to mix up the paint and how to start applying it to look like marble. Please stay with us.
Let me tell you about the toughest guy on earth. He does the work of two jobs, but only gets paid for one. He's tough enough to feed the man that gave him a lifetime of nourishment.
He has the crazy strength to lift the man that raised him up without even flinching.
That's right. No employee of the month bonus check here. This guy, no, this warrior, will always be by his father's side, even if his dad will hardly remember. Good luck finding a gym to train for that. If this guy isn't the toughest guy on the planet, then I don't know who is. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Hi, welcome back to Little Bits. We're about to start making this column, this white column, look like Carrara marble. So what you're going to need to do is arrange for 3 paper plates in your work surface and pour probably about half a cup of white paint onto each plate. You're going to be making 3 shades of gray. So I have some mid-gray here. The first color is going to be almost white. So really, it's white with just a few drops of gray added to it. As you can see, I have some craft sticks here. I'll just put a little gray in there. I'm putting in, I would say, 1/4 teaspoon of gray paint. The second color is going to be your mid-tone gray, and you can pour in, I would say, about 3 tablespoons worth of gray paint into your white. And the third color is going to be your darkest. That's going to be the veins. And what I have here is just a simple container of black craft paint that you can get at any arts and crafts store. Mix that up well. And I'm going to pour some black into the white and start mixing my colors. And on this first one, you may not be able to see the color differentiation because I really want it to look almost white. This is going to go over a lot of the surface of the piece that you're painting. So that's the color you're going to need the most of. And that's almost white. As you can see, that's about the color shading that I want. The second mid-tone gray, you can see, is a little bit darker. This is going to be used to create the illusion of depth. If you look at real marble before you attempt to create faux marble, it really is helpful. And what you'll see is that you can look into marble. There's colors in, deep within the stone. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create that illusion of depth with paint. And the third tone is going to be your darkest. That's going to be a little bit of black, a little bit of gray, dark gray. This, I'm not mixing it completely because I don't want a solid color. I want there to be a little bit of black, a little bit of gray, a little bit of white, a little bit of variation. This is going to be the veining. This is what we use the feather for. So this one is just a swirl of black paint mixed in white. And then once you have these 3 colors mixed, you're going to be ready to paint. And by the way, you can do this with any color combination. You've probably seen green marble, black marble. Just use the same basic pattern where you're going to have almost white, a mid-tone, and a dark tone. Then what you're going to do, you're going to take your sea sponge, dip it in, kind of roll it. You're not going to smush it into the plate because you're going to get too much paint on that sponge. You want to see the variations in the texture of the sea sponge on its surface. Then you're just going to start applying that to your project very randomly, very haphazardly, all over. About 60% of the surface area you're going to want to cover with this almost white. You may not even see it very clearly, but it is going to add some depth to the overall project. Now, once you do that, always remember with faux finishing marble, the key is blending. And that's where your large, soft bristled brush comes in. Because once you put the sponge, the almost white on there, you're gonna come in with your soft bristled brush and just kind of dab it. Just kind of jab it and dab it. Just create more texture on the surface. As you can see, I don't know if you'll be able to even see the variation of color on that. It'll dry a little darker, and it does give the illusion of some texture. The second step, you're going to take a mid-sized paintbrush and you're going to create some large veins. Marble has veining, so you're going to create some large veins. Now, the 60% surface area is pretty basic, so you don't need a glaze. For this next two steps, the next two sets of veins, I'd recommend adding some water-based glaze to your paint. This is just going to make the paint stay wet a little longer. You're not using a lot of paint, so it could dry very quickly. Just pour a little bit of glaze into the paint and stir that up. And this is going to, like I said, allow you to work with the paint a little longer, and it gives kind of a nice translucent effect. For this step, you're going to take a little bit of the mid-gray. You don't want a really wet paintbrush. This is kind of if you've ever heard of dry brushing techniques, that's where a paintbrush is almost dry. You really kind of want a dry paintbrush. You don't want too much paint on there. So I've wiped off the excess of the paint. Then you're going to come in and you're going to create some large veins on the surface. And what you do is you apply the paint with a jerky hand, because you don't want it to be straight and whatever. You want it to look a little mottled, a little broken. So you're going to come in and you're going to create these veins. If you can see these large veins. Now, marble, when you look at your real marble sample, you'll see that the veins run on a diagonal. They don't run up and down. What you don't want to do, I'm going to show you on the back side of this, is veins that go up and down like that. That's not realistic. What you want is a broken approach, and you want a diagonal. So once you've put on some of the mid-tone gray, you're going to need to come back in and texture that, because we don't want it solid. We're going to texture it. So we're going to go back to our almost white and just gather up a little bit of paint on our sea sponge. And you're going to come back in and just lightly dab. I am going over the mid-sized gray veins that I just painted. And because you're using such little paint, you don't have to wait for this to dry. Actually, you don't want it to dry. So you're going to do that right away. And you don't want, you're just kind of making it look smoky. You don't want any hard edges on that. You want it to kind of look almost like it's floating on the surface, the color of the marble veins. If I had come in and used too much gray, let's say I don't know why, but I just put too much gray on it and did one that I didn't like, no problem. Just come back in. You're gonna cover it up with more white paint. Sometimes imperfections look good. It makes it look more realistic, like realistic marble. And again, I'm just sponging down and creating diagonal lines with the sponge technique. I know sponging got a bad name in the 1990s because we all sponge painted every other room in our homes. It was a bad decorating mistake, but this is a good sponging. This is good sponging. Now, stand back. That's important. You're not going to see me for a minute because I'm going to stand back 6 feet away from my project and take a look at it and see, before you continue, does that look realistic? Does it look like the color is floating and there's depth? Or does it look like you need a little more white or a little more gray? Let's see. All right, that's a little dark. I see some dark areas in there that I'm not liking. Again, just sponge it. And then come back in with your brush, kind of dab, twisting while you go. And again, you're just looking to get some texture. This would be the mid-tone gray that you're using. And when we come back, I'm going to show you with a feather how to create the fine lines and the fine veining that's really going to make this look like an actual piece of marble. So I hope you stay with us. Thank you.
I got a crick in my neck, limp in my step, cramping in my muscles every time I try to flex. Better no one's scared of. It's very sad, no more love. All that I could do was remember you. You know I usually say no, but if you throw me love, I'll throw you some more.
Hi, welcome back to Little Bits. We are creating a faux Carrara marble column today, as you can see. And we're up to the point where we are going to put in the fine lines. We've put a coat of primer on the column. We've done 60% of the surface area with an almost white sponge technique to give it some texture. Then we took a mid-sized paintbrush and did some large gray veining, which we've blended to have no hard edges, and that kind of floats on the surface, hopefully, and it gives you an indication as to where you're going to put your fine lines, the fine veins that really make it pop. And to do that, you can use a small paintbrush if you'd like, but I really like to use a feather. So what you do is you take your third color of paint, your darkest color. This is the one that you didn't mix up completely. This is the one that's the swirl of the black and the white and the gray. We're gonna put a little glaze on top of that. And you don't mix that, just pour it on. This is fun. This is the fun part. It's messy, it's fun. So as you can see, I've got some glaze and I've got my swirl of paint, and I'm gonna take the feather. I'm just gonna run the feather through the paint. Maybe I'll get a little black, a little white. Take off the excess, just take off a little bit of the excess. You can always add more. There's your feather, loaded and ready to go. And remember, when you're putting on the veins, the jerkier your hand movements, the better. That's what you want. So, you're gonna loosely follow. A little more black. I want it a little darker right here. You're going to loosely follow the mid-sized gray veins that you created. You can always add more black to your plate if you want some spot a little darker. which I'll do right now because I've mixed it and there's some gray. Like I said, this is the fun part. It's kind of messy. So I'm gonna get a little black, a little solid black in there. And just, not the whole thing, just a little black. As you can see, there's different shade gradations in my vein. Come in here. You don't want broken. The veins connect. They don't just end. You need to bring it to the edge of your painting surface because you don't want a vein to just stop. Okay, so I've put a little bit of paint on there. Now I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna dab it with the soft bristled brush and try to stay. You don't wanna be smushing it all over the place because you're gonna lose your vein. So you just wanna kind of gently dab it to blend it. Again, look at your sample of the Carrera marble. It's really a matter of taste. Some Carrera marbles have lots of gray veins, some have very few. I've seen finished faux projects that have just one or two veins running across it, and then others that have multiple veins. So it really is up to you. And now here's where, again, you're gonna kind of stand back. I've put one smaller vein in, stand back and take a look at it. And I'm just gonna add a little more black. I like some spots to have dark. This is really the part of the project where take your time. You're not using a lot of paint. As you can see, you're not painting the entire surface. You're going to work in small portions, so you don't have to rush to finish the whole thing. So here, I'm going to create another vein coming from this one. Again, veins work on the diagonal, so it would start, you're going to apply that with a jerky hand. That's pretty dark, so I'm going to take my brush, my mid-sized brush, and I'm going to get some white. Some of that almost white, and I'm gonna dab it on there because I don't like how dark that one came out. So you can always change the color. And then I'm gonna come back in and smooth that out. That's a little mottled right there. It's got some nice depth to it, but it doesn't have that pop of a small vein. So I'm gonna put one in right there with some black paint. Again, always mottled hand, a jerky movement. Yeah, I like that. That's better. Do you see the difference there? There's several different shades. I hope you can see that it does give the appearance of depth because there are several different shades of the gray. Now, you're gonna continue doing this on the whole surface, and that, folks, is the Carrera marble technique. Now, there is a couple of steps to finish the project, which really makes a big difference on how you finish this project and how it looks. So when we come back, I'm gonna show you a finished column that I've done and how to finish a project so that it really pops and looks very shiny. So please stay with us.
As an 18-year-old, I let my mistakes kind of take over my life. I was 0.5 credits away from completing high school, and I didn't do it. When I found out that I was pregnant, I know that I had to do something for myself if I wanted to make her a better person and provide a better life for her. My family never stopped pushing for me to be better because they knew what I could become and who I could become as a person. My support team is amazing. The educational director here, my sister, and even my 7-year-old daughter has just been more than the support that I could ask for.
And to see you makes me proud.
I've been given an opportunity, and I'm just thankful for it.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Hi, welcome back to Little Bits. On today's show, we're doing a faux Carrara marble. As you see, this is a column that I painted and have let dry completely. And to finish this, what I'm going to do is polyurethane the whole surface. The polyurethane in a satin finish gives the project that nice shiny appearance of marble. And after all, you are going for as realistic a look as you can. I'm going to say that we are members of the Italian school here, and we're kind of loose and more artistic than the French formal way that they did it. So now, one of the fun things that you can do, and this is optional, I purchased some silver glitter that I'm going to put into the polyurethane. It's called Divine Color Silver Dust. If you can't find that, I got this at a craft store. If you cannot find that exact product, you can use extra fine silver glitter. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna pour, and it's really up to you how much glitter you want in there. I'm gonna use a fair amount. I would say maybe 2 tablespoons for added to the half a cup of polyurethane that I have here. And I'm gonna mix that well. And what this is gonna do, you're not really gonna see it, but what it's gonna do is just reflect light so that the finished product is gonna look shinier, therefore more realistic, more like marble, more interesting looking. So as you can see, it kind of looks gray, like you're gonna cover everything, but you're not. It dries pretty clear. Just take a large paintbrush and coat your project with polyurethane, glitter enhanced polyurethane. I usually do 2 coats. I have triple thick polyurethane here. It goes on nice and thick. This dries lighter. You may see that it's looking a little dark, but it dries clearer. Dries 100% clear. And you'll just have some of the glitter effects in that. I don't know if you can see on camera the glitter, but it looks very shiny, and it just gives an extra sparkle to your project. What I did here on this column is the same technique on the top and the bottom, just to give a little contrast for the piece. I did the top and the bottom in a darker shade of gray. It was the same technique, using the feather for veining. I just thought that this project, it looked nice having the 2 different shades. As you can see, I hope you can see, because especially on this darker gray, you're really seeing the glitter effect. Really looks shiny. And there you have it. You have a marble column. You can, as I said, do a small table. You can get real ambitious and do bathroom walls or anything that you'd like. So I hope you enjoyed today's show, and please join us next time on Little Bits, where we give you a little bit of art, a little bit of craft, and a little bit of history. Thanks very much.